It was a night when silence seemed heavier than the air itself. The wind carried whispers through the old cemetery, brushing past crooked stones and faded flowers that told stories of lives long gone. A motorcycle engine broke the stillness, its low growl echoing like a lonely voice across the graves. The man riding it wasn't just any stranger wandering into this place. He came here often, because here, beneath the cold earth, lay the woman he once loved more than anything. She was his anchor, his heart, his reason. And even though she was gone, he could never let go. The biker pulled up to the familiar spot, his headlights cutting across the dark until they landed on her grave. He turned off the engine. Suddenly, the world grew quiet again, except for the rustle of leaves and the faint hum of night insects. He removed his helmet slowly, his rough hands trembling as if he was preparing himself for another evening of grief. Every visit was the same. He would sit there, speak softly to the stone, and try to believe that somehow she could still hear him. But tonight, something was different. His breath caught in his chest when his eyes focused on a small figure already sitting by the grave. A little girl, no more than 7 or 8, was curled beside the stone. Her arms wrapped tightly around a scruffy dog whose fur glistened faintly in the moonlight. The dog was alert, protective, his eyes glowing faintly as he watched the approaching biker. The girl didn't notice at first. Her face was buried against the dog's neck, her shoulders shaking with muffled sobs. The biker froze. This was supposed to be his sacred place, his private ritual. Yet here was this fragile child, trespassing, or perhaps just lost. But then he heard her voice, so small, so fragile, that it pierced through his chest like a blade. "I just wanted to see her one more time," she whispered, barely louder than the wind. The biker felt his throat tighten. She wasn't talking about his wife, was she? He stepped closer, cautious, unsure if his presence would frighten her. The dog growled low, a sound of warning, but didn't move. The girl finally lifted her face, streaked with tears, and for a long moment their eyes met. Hers were wide, filled with a sorrow too heavy for someone so young to carry. His, tired and weary, mirrored the same emptiness. "What are you doing here?" he asked softly, his voice gentler than he expected it to be. The girl wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, sniffling. "I came to see my mom. She's sleeping here." She pointed at the very grave the biker had come to visit. For a moment, he felt dizzy. That was his wife's grave. Was she mistaken, or had fate drawn them both here to the same stone, two souls clinging to the same memory? The girl hugged the dog tighter and looked away. "I just wanted to say goodnight. I just wanted to tell her I miss her." The biker's heart cracked open. He crouched down, his leather jacket creaking as he tried to bring himself closer to her level. The dog watched him with cautious eyes but did not resist. He studied the girl's face, searching for familiarity, but there was none. Still, her grief was so raw, so real, that he felt as though he was looking at his own reflection, years younger. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," she murmured. "And this is Max." She stroked the dog's fur with small, trembling hands. The biker nodded slowly. "Lily, it's late. Your mom wouldn't want you to be out here all alone." "I'm not alone," she said quickly, clinging tighter to the dog. "Max is with me. He always keeps me safe." There was a pause. The biker didn't know what to say. He glanced at the gravestone, the familiar letters etched into the marble. His wife's name stared back at him, unchanging, eternal. Yet here was a child claiming the same grave as her mother's. Confusion tangled with sorrow in his chest, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't know if he had the strength to speak. The girl seemed to sense his hesitation. You come here too?" she asked, her voice trembling. He swallowed hard. "Yes, my wife, she's here." The night deepened, shadows lengthening across the gravestones, but none of them moved to leave. The biker found himself listening to the soft rhythm of Lily's breathing as she leaned against her dog, her tiny body wrapped in his jacket. Max, ever watchful, kept his eyes on him, but the growl in his chest had long faded into silence. There was a quiet understanding in the way the dog's ears flicked, as if he had decided the man meant no harm. The biker had never been one for children. He never thought about being a father. But now, watching her, he wondered how a girl so small could carry such a heavy sorrow. Her words replayed in his head, she just wanted to see her mom one more time. That longing, it was the same one that had driven him back here every week since the accident, hoping for a sign, a whisper, anything. After a long silence, Lily spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Did your wife ever come to you? In a dream maybe, or, did you ever feel her? The question caught him off guard. He opened his mouth to say no, to admit that his nights were empty, but then he remembered the countless times he had woken up with tears on his face, certain he had felt her hand brushing his cheek. He remembered moments when the scent of her perfume filled the room, even though the bottle had been packed away years ago. Yes, he said finally, his voice low and rough. Sometimes, I feel her. Like she's still here, not the way I want her to be, not in flesh and blood, but in little things. A song, a smell, the way the sun comes through the window. He swallowed hard. It's not the same, but it's something. Lily listened carefully, her small hands tangled in Max's fur. I wish I could feel that. I try, but I don't feel anything, just empty. The biker's chest tightened. He wanted to reach out, to tell her that emptiness was normal, that it didn't mean her mother wasn't near. But words seemed so fragile against the weight of her grief. Instead, he let the silence hold them, knowing sometimes silence was stronger than any promise. Finally, he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since she first spoke. Lily, where do you go when you leave here? Where's home? Her eyes darted to the ground. She hesitated, then whispered, we don't really have one. We just stay where we can. Sometimes a shelter, sometimes nowhere. The biker's stomach twisted. A child, wandering the world with only a dog to protect her, that image was unbearable. He tried to imagine his wife's reaction if she could see this. She had always been the kind one, the one who never turned away from someone in need. She would have scooped Lily up in her arms, no questions asked. And now, here he was, faced with the same choice. You can't keep living like that, he said gently, but there was steel in his tone. It's not safe. She shrugged, her face stubborn. It's all I have. Max keeps me safe. He always has. She buried her face against the dog's fur again. He's the only family I've got left. The biker studied her for a long moment. The dog's loyalty was obvious. Max wasn't just a pet, he was her guardian, her protector, the one who had carried her through nights darker than this one. But even the strongest dog couldn't shield her from everything. He sighed and rubbed a hand over his face. He felt the weight of a decision pressing down on him, one he wasn't sure he was ready to make. He had been drowning in his own grief for so long that he had forgotten what it meant to care for someone else. To open his heart again. But maybe that was the point. Maybe this child had been placed in his path not by accident, but by something greater. Lily, he said softly, let me take you somewhere safe. Just for tonight. You shouldn't be out here. Her eyes widened, uncertain. You mean, your house? Yes, just for tonight. He held up his hands quickly, not wanting to frighten her. You and Max both. I won't ask questions. I don't want you out here alone. Max shifted, as though sensing the weight of the offer. His eyes flicked between the man and the girl, then back again. Lily hugged the dog tighter. I don't know. The biker leaned closer, lowering his voice. My wife, she wouldn't forgive me if I left you here. Please, just let me do this one thing. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, painting soft golden lines across the living room floor. The biker stirred awake in his chair, stiff from having sat upright all night. His eyes fell on the couch, where Lily was curled up beneath the blanket, Max still pressed tightly against her. For a moment, he simply watched, listening to the gentle rhythm of their breathing. It felt surreal. After years of emptiness, his house was no longer silent. It was filled with the fragile sounds of life. He rose quietly, careful not to wake them, and went into the kitchen. The kettle hissed on the stove as he poured water into 2 cups, one for him, and a warm cocoa for Lily. He caught himself thinking about details he hadn't thought of in years. How his wife used to hum while stirring sugar into her tea. How she would always prepare breakfast even on the hardest mornings. He stood there, lost in the memory, until he felt a small tug on his sleeve. Is that for me? Lily's sleepy voice drifted up to him. She rubbed her eyes, Max trailing behind her with a stretch and a yawn. He smiled faintly and handed her the cup. Careful, it's hot. She sipped, her eyes lighting up. It's good. She settled into a chair, Max resting at her feet. For a few moments, it was quiet again, but not the suffocating silence he had grown used to. This silence was softer, gentler, almost comforting. After breakfast, Lily's eyes wandered back to the photographs on the wall. She looked so happy, she said, pointing to another picture of his wife. She was, the biker replied, his voice low. She could light up a room without even trying. Do you miss her every day? Lily asked. He swallowed hard. Every single day. Her gaze dropped to her cup, her fingers tightening around it. I miss my mom too. But sometimes I'm scared I'll forget her face. The biker felt his heart ache. He stood and retrieved a framed photograph, one he hadn't touched in years. He set it gently in front of her. You won't forget. The people we love, they stay with us, even when they're gone. They live here. He placed a hand over his chest. Lily studied the photo quietly, tears brimming in her eyes. Max nudged her leg gently, as though reminding her he was there. She reached down and buried her fingers in his fur. The biker leaned against the counter, watching them. He realized then that grief didn't just bind people to the past. It could also create bridges between strangers, carrying them toward something new. The day passed slowly. He found himself showing her the small garden his wife had once tended, now overgrown but still alive with stubborn flowers. He showed her the old guitar he hadn't touched since the funeral. To his surprise, Lily asked him to play. His fingers stumbled over the strings at first, rusty and unsure, but soon the notes began to flow. The sound filled the house, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel empty. As evening came, Lily stood by the window, staring out at the fading sun. We should go back tonight, she said softly. Back where? The biker asked. She hesitated. To the cemetery. I didn't get to say goodbye properly. He nodded. Then we'll go. The motorcycle rumbled back to life, carrying them once more through the quiet streets and into the heart of the cemetery. The air was cooler now, heavy with the scent of grass and earth. They approached the same gravestone, its marble glowing faintly in the moonlight. Lily slid off the bike, Max jumping down beside her. She walked slowly to the grave, her small shoulders trembling. Kneeling down, she placed her hand gently on the stone. Hi, Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. I came to see you again. I thought maybe I could feel you, just once. But even if I can't, I want you to know I love you. I'll always love you, and I'll be okay, I promise. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time, there was strength in her words. Max pressed against her side, steady as ever. The biker stood a few steps back, his eyes burning. He wanted to give her space, but he couldn't stop the flood of emotion rising in his chest. He remembered his own nights of begging for one more moment, one more glimpse, one more chance. Watching Lily, he realized that maybe what he had prayed for had come in a different form. Maybe he didn't need his wife to come back. Maybe what he needed was to carry her love forward. Lily turned to him then, her face streaked with tears but glowing with something he hadn't seen before, peace. I said goodbye, she whispered. He crouched beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. And she heard you, I promise. They sat there together for a long while, the stars bright above them, the night holding them in a quiet embrace. And when they finally rose to leave, it wasn't with the crushing weight of loss, but with the fragile hope of healing. On the ride home, Lily rested her head against his back, her small hands gripping Max, who balanced carefully beside her. The biker felt the warmth of her presence, and for the first time since the day he had buried his wife, he didn't feel hollow. He felt alive. When they reached the house, Lily looked up at him with tired eyes. Can we stay here? Just for a little while longer? His throat tightened, but he nodded. For as long as you need. As she curled up on the couch once more, Max at her side, the biker glanced at his wife's photograph. He whispered softly into the stillness, I think I understand now. You didn't leave me alone. You left me someone to take care of. Someone who needs me as much as I need her. And as the night settled in, the house no longer felt like a shrine to the past. It felt like the beginning of something new, something fragile, but real. A broken man, a lost child, and a loyal dog, bound together by love, by grief, and by the unshakable truth that even in the deepest sorrow, life finds a way to bring us back to each other. The biker closed his eyes, a single tear rolling down his cheek. For the first time in years, he whispered not a goodbye, but a thank you. And in the quiet that followed, it felt as though the night whispered back,